The rain in New Seattle did not wash the city clean. It only made the grime slicker, turning the streets into a kaleidoscope of smeared neon and oil. Noah Cade stepped off the maglev transit with one duffel bag, a bruised ego, and a desperate hope that this time, the fresh start would actually stick. The water soaked through the shoulders of his jacket in seconds, cold and smelling of recycled atmospheric scrubbers. He pulled his collar up and looked at the building. It was a monolith of glass and steel, rising 60 floors into the heavy gray clouds. The spire. It looked like the kind of place where people with salary credits lived, not people like Noah, who was currently counting every coin in his digital wallet. The rental listing had been an anomaly, a 3-bedroom unit in a high-security zone for the price of a closet in the darker districts. It was too good to be true. Noah knew that, but when you have spent the last 6 months sleeping on couches and dodging calls from creditors, you learn to ignore the alarm bells ringing in the back of your head. He walked into the lobby. The air inside was climate-controlled perfection, smelling of ozone, citrus cleaner, and expensive secrets. The silence was heavy, the kind that money buys to keep the noise of the city out. There was no human concierge. Instead, a sleek, chrome-plated rental bot stood behind a marble counter, its optical sensors tracking Noah as he dripped rainwater onto the pristine floor. Noah approached the machine. It did not smile. It did not offer a greeting. It simply projected a holographic contract into the air between them. Name: Noah Cade. Occupation: maintenance engineer, freelance. Credit rating: provisional. The bot processed the data with a soft whir. Unit 42B, the bot said. Its voice was a synthesized baritone, stripped of any inflection. The primary leaseholders have approved the sublet based on your technical profile. However, there are addendums to the standard residential agreement. You must acknowledge them immediately. Noah squinted at the floating blue text. It was dense, scrolling fast. Can I read them first? Time is a factor, the bot replied. Please acknowledge. Clause 1, no biological guests after midnight. Clause 2, no recording devices, audio or visual, are permitted in common areas. Clause 3, tenant agrees to ignore any localized power fluctuations, electromagnetic interference, or unauthorized medical equipment found within the premises. Noah paused, his finger hovering over the biometric scanner. Medical equipment? Is someone sick? Question limit exceeded, the bot stated. Sign or vacate. Noah looked at the rain lashing against the lobby windows. He looked at his wet duffel bag. He looked at the warm, dry elevator waiting behind the security gate. He pressed his thumb against the scanner. The hologram flashed green. Welcome home, Mr. Cade, the bot said, dismissing him before the light even faded. The elevator ride was smooth, the kind that barely registered in your stomach. Noah watched the floor numbers tick upward. 40, 41, 42. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. He was a good roommate. He was quiet. He fixed things. He could do this. He just needed a place to sleep and a place to think. The corridor on the 42nd floor was hushed, lined with doors that looked like brushed steel vaults. He found 42B at the end of the hall. He keyed in the temporary code the bot had transferred to his link. The lock disengaged with a heavy mechanical thud that sounded more like a bank vault opening than an apartment door. Noah pushed it open and stepped inside. Hello? He called out, dragging his bag over the threshold. I am the new... The words died in his throat. He had expected a messy living room. Maybe a couple of exhausted corporate drones eating noodles on a sofa. Maybe a cat. What he found was a scene that looked like it had been ripped from a high-budget cinema reel. The living room was spacious, dominated by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the storm-lashed city. But Noah didn't look at the view. He looked at the kitchen. 2 women were there, and they were not corporate drones. The one standing by the island counter was tall, with skin the color of moonlight on polished marble. She wore a suit that seemed woven from matte shadows, sharp and tailored. Her hair was a cascading sheet of silver that didn't just hang. It hovered slightly, as if affected by its own gravity. She was perfectly still, holding a glass of water like it was a chalice. This was Lyra. The other woman was sitting on top of the counter, swinging her legs. She was a riot of color compared to the first. Her hair was a jagged punk rock cut of electric blue, and she wore grease-stained coveralls that had been modified with glowing patches of circuitry. She was dismantling a toaster with a laser screwdriver. This was Vexa. They both looked at Noah. The silence stretched out, elastic and tense. Noah stood there, water dripping from his nose, his hand still gripping the strap of his bag. His brain tried to process what he was seeing. They were beautiful. Yes. Stunning, actually. But there was something wrong with the geometry of their faces, and their cheekbones were too high, too sharp. Their eyes were too wide. Noah blurted out the only thing his brain could formulate. I rented a room. The one on the counter. Vexa stopped spinning the screwdriver. She looked him up and down, her grin widening to reveal teeth that were just a fraction too sharp to be human. She pointed the laser tool toward the spare bedroom door down the hall. Yep, she purred, the sound vibrating in the air like a cat sitting on a subwoofer. A human man rented a room, but his roommates were 2 alien women. Congratulations. Noah blinked. He let out a short, nervous laugh. Right. Okay. Good joke. Is there a hidden camera? Is this for a stream? He looked around for the lens, but his eyes snagged on details he had missed in the first shock. He looked at Lyra. As she set the water glass down, the veins on the inside of her wrist flared with a soft, bioluminescent blue light, pulsing in time with a heartbeat that was far too slow for a human. He looked at her eyes. The irises weren't circles. They were segmented, shifting and rotating like the aperture of a complex camera lens as she focused on him. He looked at the kitchen appliances. The microwave wasn't a microwave. It was a black box humming with a low, deep resonance that made Noah's teeth ache. A thick cable ran from it to the wall, throbbing with energy. It sounded like a power plant, not a kitchen appliance. This was not a prank. Noah felt the blood drain from his face. He was standing in a room with 2 non-humans. In New Seattle, aliens were known. The embassy had been here for 5 years. But they were distant figures. They were diplomats behind blast glass, or images on the news. They didn't need roommates. They didn't live in 42B. You are staring, the tall one, Lyra said. Her voice was like velvet wrapped around a knife. It was melodious, but it carried an undertone of authority that made Noah want to stand up straighter. I am sorry, Noah stammered. He tried to engage his fresh start protocol. Be polite. Be normal. Ignore the glowing veins. I am Noah. Noah Cade. He stepped forward and extended his hand. Lyra looked at his hand as if he were offering her a live grenade. She didn't take it. Instead, she leaned in slightly, her segmented pupils narrowing. A beam of pale light swept out from her eyes, scanning his palm, his wrist, and up to his shoulder. No concealed ballistics, she stated calmly to the other woman. Elevated cortisol, minor malnutrition. He is harmless. Harmless is boring, Vexa said. hopping off the counter. She moved with a fluidity that was unnerving, like she had extra joints in her legs. She circled Noah, leaning in to sniff his shoulder. "Whoa," Noah said, backing up. "You smell weird," Vexa declared. She wrinkled her nose. "Chemicals and wet dog? No. Wet synthetic fiber, aggressively mammalian." "It is my shampoo," Noah said, feeling absurd. "It is herbal." "It is tragic," Vexa corrected. "Are you—" Noah struggled to find a category that made sense. "Are you exchange students? I heard the university was opening a program for off-world integration." Vexa threw her head back and laughed. It was a chaotic sound, like glass breaking in a melody. She laughed until she choked, coughing and pounding her chest. "Exchange students," she wheezed. "Oh, Lyra, did you hear? I am going to major in humanities. I want to study how they survived this long without blowing themselves up." Lyra did not laugh. She stepped around the island, her movement silent. She stopped 2 feet from Noah. Up close, she was intimidatingly tall. Her scent was not like perfume. It smelled like rain on hot asphalt and ozone. "Listen to me closely, Mr. Cade," Lyra said. Her tone was diplomatic but left no room for argument. "You have signed the contract. That binds you. You may stay here. The rent is paid, but there are rules beyond the contract." Noah nodded dumbly. "Rules? Sure. Rule 1, Lyra counted on long, slender fingers. "Discretion. You do not discuss us. You do not discuss our equipment. To the world. We are 2 eccentric artists from the European sector. Do you understand?" "Eccentric artists," Noah repeated. "Got it." "Rule 2, she continued. "Security. You do not open the door for anyone unless Vexa clears it. Not for delivery drones. Not for inspection. Not if the building is on fire." "Okay," Noah said, his voice rising slightly. "That last one seems like a safety hazard." "Rule 3, Lyra said, ignoring him. She pointed a finger toward a heavy metal door at the far end of the hallway, past the bathroom. "The utility room. It is locked. It stays locked. You never touch the handle. You never ask what is inside. If you breach this rule, the eviction will be immediate and permanent." She held his gaze. Her eyes were a swirling vortex of violet and silver. It felt like she was reading the code of his DNA. It was a look that promised violence, but there was something else in it too. A desperation. A plea. "I agree," Noah said. He was desperate too. He had nowhere else to go. And despite the terror, he felt a strange gravitational pull. He wanted to know what was behind that gaze. "Be good," Lyra said. The tension in her shoulders dropped by a fraction of an inch. "Vexa, show the human his quarters." Aye, Captain," Vexa mocked, giving a loose salute. She grabbed Noah's duffel bag before he could protest. "Come on, mammal. Let's see if your bed is soft enough for your fragile spine." Noah followed her, glancing back once. Lyra was standing by the window, watching the storm, her hand resting absently on the humming black box that wasn't a microwave. The room was small, but clean. Noah unpacked in a daze. He put his few shirts in the closet and set his toothbrush in the bathroom. It was when he was walking back from the bathroom that he saw it. Lyra's bedroom door was slightly ajar. Through the crack, he saw a sleek silver suitcase on her bed. It looked like high-end diplomatic luggage, the kind used by the embassy staff. It had the crest of the Interstellar Coalition on the side, a stylized star cluster. But the crest had been deeply scratched out, gouged into the metal, right over the official seal, was a crude symbol painted in matte black, a jagged descending spiral. Noah pulled back quickly as he heard Lyra moving inside. He retreated to his room, his heart hammering. You don't scratch out your own flag unless you have left it behind, or unless it is hunting you. Night fell over the city, turning the rain into sheets of darkness. Noah couldn't sleep. The apartment was quiet, but it was a living quiet. He could hear the low thrum of the alien tech in the kitchen. Around 2 in the morning, he heard the voice. It was coming from the balcony. He crept to the living room, staying in the shadows. The curtains were drawn, but he could see Lyra's silhouette against the city lights. She was speaking into a small device, her voice low. She wasn't speaking English. The language was a series of melodic clicks and soft, rolling vowels. It sounded like water flowing over stones. But Noah didn't need a translator to understand the tone. Her voice was trembling. The regal, terrifying diplomat was shaking. Salara, K, Ra, she whispered, the words breaking. Noah took a step back, the floorboard creaking. Lyra went silent instantly. Before she could turn, the world went white. It wasn't a sound, not at first. It was a flash of light so intense it bleached the color out of the room. The silence that followed lasted for a single heartbeat, absolute and terrifying. Then the pressure wave hit. The windows of the apartment bowed inward, the glass screaming under the strain. The floor lurched beneath Noah's feet. A second later, the sound arrived, a thunderclap that felt like it cracked his skull. Down! It was Vexa. She launched herself from the hallway, moving faster than a human should be able to move. She tackled Noah, shoving him hard into the carpet. In the same motion, she threw a small metallic disc into the center of the room. Shield up! Vexa yelled. The disc spun and expanded, projecting a shimmering hexagonal grid of orange light that snapped over the room like a dome. Outside, the neighboring high-rise, the twin to their tower, was burning. A massive hole had been punched into its side, 40 floors up. Debris was raining down into the street. Sirens began to wail, a dissonant chorus rising from the city below. The sky turned red as emergency holograms flickered to life, painting the clouds with warning symbols. Inside the orange dome, the air suddenly felt thick, like gelatin. The roar of the explosion and the sirens was instantly swallowed, replaced by a dull, muffled hum. Noah scrambled to his knees, his ears ringing. What the hell was that, a gas main? Lyra was standing by the balcony doors. She hadn't flinched. She was watching the burning building with a look of grim resignation. That was not gas, Lyra said. She turned to face them. Her bioluminescent veins were flaring bright blue, fueled by adrenaline. That was a kinetic strike, a drone. Targeting who? Noah asked, though the cold pit in his stomach told him he already knew. Us, Vexa said. She was tapping furiously on a holographic keyboard projected from her wrist. They missed. Calibration error, or maybe a warning shot. Noah looked from Vexa to Lyra. Who is they? You said you were artists. We lied, Lyra said simply. She walked over to Noah. The orange light of the shield cast strange shadows on her face, making her look more alien, more other. We are not tourists. Noah, we are refugees. Refugees from the embassy? Noah asked. From the coalition, Lyra corrected. And from certain factions on Earth who want to make sure we never testify. Noah scrambled to his feet. Testify? Look, I signed a lease. I didn't sign up for a war. I need to get out of here. I need to call the police. The police will not help you, Vexa said without looking up. Look at the feed. She swiped her hand, and a news projection hovered in the air. The headline screamed in bold red letters, Alien Extremist Attack. The reporter, a breathless man in a raincoat, was standing in front of the burning tower. Sources confirm the explosion was caused by illicit alien technology. Authorities are locking down the district. The embassy has issued a statement condemning rogue elements and has authorized emergency restrictions on all human-alien cohabitation zones. Noah watched the screen. Alien extremists? That is the narrative, Lyra said softly. They blow up a building, blame it on us, and use the fear to tighten the leash. Noah looked at his link. He had messages already. His employer, a contract firm that serviced the docks, had sent a mass alert. Due to new security protocols regarding the alien threat, all freelance contracts with residents of Sector 4 are suspended pending investigation. Sector 4. This sector. He stared at the words. Suspended. My job, Noah whispered. They just cut my contract. I haven't even been here a day. They will cancel your bank access next, Vexa said grimly. That is how they work. Squeeze the humans until they turn on the aliens. It is a standard destabilization tactic. Noah paced the room, running his hands through his hair. This isn't fair. I didn't do anything. I just wanted a room. I just wanted to start over. He looked at the door. He could leave. He could grab his bag, run down the 42 flights of stairs, and try to explain to the cops that he was just a patsy. Maybe they would believe him. Maybe he could sleep in a shelter tonight. Maybe he could salvage the scraps of his life. He reached for his duffel bag. Lyra moved. She didn't block the door. She didn't threaten him. She just stepped into his path. Close enough that he could feel the static charge coming off her suit. The apartment was dark, lit only by the red strobe of the emergency lights outside and the soft orange glow of Vexa's shield. Lyra looked down at him. Her eyes were not swirling anymore. They were steady, ancient, and sad. You can go, she said. Her voice was quiet, barely a whisper in the thick air. You can tell them you know nothing. They might believe you. I should, Noah said. His voice cracked. I really should. If you leave, Lyra said, tilting her head slightly. You might live longer. You might find another room, another job, another small life. She took a step closer. The scent of ozone and rain filled his lungs. But if you stay, she murmured, you might live truer. Noah looked at her. He looked at the strength in her jaw, the fear she was burying under centuries of discipline, and the absolute terrifying challenge in her eyes. Live truer. He had spent his whole life playing it safe. He had followed the rules, kept his head down, fixed what he was told to fix, and he had still ended up broke and alone in the rain. He had been living long, but he hadn't been living. He looked at Vexa, who was watching him with a surprising lack of mockery. She looked ready to fight the whole world, but she also looked like she was hoping he wouldn't make her do it alone. Noah dropped his duffel bag. It hit the floor with a heavy thud. I paid the rent, Noah said. His voice was steady now. I'm not leaving until the month is up. Lyra held his gaze for a long moment. Then, slowly, the bioluminescence in her veins softened from a combat bright blue to a warm, gentle violet. Understood, she said. Vexa let out a breath she had been holding. Okay then. Roommate meeting. Topic: how to not die. Noah looked out the window at the burning city skyline. The apartment wasn't just a rental anymore. It was a battleground, and for the first time in years. Noah Cade wasn't running away. He was digging in. The morning light that filtered into apartment 42B was not the soft, golden hue of a natural sunrise. It was a harsh, filtered gray, broken up by the strobing red of emergency beacons that still swirled in the heavy mist outside. Noah woke with a stiff neck and a mouth that tasted like recycled air. For a brief, blissful second, he forgot where he was. He thought he was back in his old cramping efficiency unit near the docks. Then he heard the hum. It was a low, resonant thrumming that vibrated through the floorboards, a sound that felt less like machinery and more like a sleeping animal. Noah sat up. The events of the previous night crashed back into his memory. The explosion, the shield, the revelation. He walked out of his room, rubbing sleep from his eyes, and stopped dead. The living room had been transformed. The comfortable, if minimalist, furniture had been shoved to the periphery. In the center of the room, hovering above the coffee table, was a complex three-dimensional projection of the city. It wasn't the static blue map of a GPS. This was alive. It pulsed with traffic flows, energy grid outputs, and security drone patrols, all rendered in lines of neon light, orange, teal, and violent violet. Lyra stood on one side of the projection. She had changed out of her suit into something that looked like a training tunic, woven from a fabric that shifted color slightly as she moved. Vexa was on the floor, surrounded by dismantled components of the microwave and several other devices Noah didn't recognize. "You are awake," Lyra said without looking up. She swept her hand through a cluster of buildings on the map, expanding the view of the blast zone. "We are assessing the tactical fallout." "Tactical fallout," Noah repeated, his voice raspy. "Right. Good morning to you too." "Morning, soft skin," Vexa chirped. She was holding a soldering iron in her teeth. She took it out and pointed it at him. "Breakfast is on the counter. Do not eat the blue packet. That is coolant." Noah walked to the kitchen island. There were 3 silver pouches sitting there. He picked one up. It was labeled in a script he couldn't read, sharp, angular characters that looked like claw marks. "What is this?" Noah asked. "Nutrient gel," Vexa said, hopping up from the floor. "High efficiency, maximum caloric density, it tastes like victory." Noah tore the corner off the pouch. He squeezed a glob of translucent green jelly onto his finger and sniffed it. It smelled like wet copper and chalk. He looked at Vexa. She was watching him with an expression of intense, gleeful anticipation. "Go on," she urged. "It builds strong bones or dissolves them. I forget which." Noah hesitated, then shoved the finger into his mouth. The flavor hit him like a physical blow. It was impossibly bitter, followed by a wave of searing heat, and then a texture that could only be described as curdled oil. Noah gagged, his eyes watering instantly. He grabbed the edge of the counter, coughing violently as he forced himself to swallow. "Oh God," Noah wheezed, pounding his chest. "That is horrific." Vexa threw her head back and cheered, pumping her fist in the air. "Yes, a new record. The last human I gave that to passed out." "You have tested this on others?" Noah asked, wiping his eyes. "Science requires a sample size." Vexa grinned. Lyra sighed, the sound loud in the room. She walked over to the coffee machine, the one normal appliance Noah had insisted on keeping plugged in. She picked up a mug Noah had brewed earlier. She took a sip, and her elegant features twisted into a grimace of profound offense. "And you consume this poison," Lyra said, staring at the black liquid with suspicion. "It is burnt bean water. It tastes of anxiety." "It is called coffee," Noah rasped, finally recovering from the gel. "And it is the only thing keeping the human economy running. Respect the bean." "Your species is a biological paradox," Lyra muttered, setting the mug down with a distinct lack of respect. She turned back to the map. "Come. You need to understand the board if you are to survive the game." Noah joined them around the glowing hologram. Lyra pointed to a cluster of lights near the coastline. I am a diplomat, Lyra said, her voice shifting into that formal velvet tone. I serve the Reformation Coalition. We represent a union of 7 star systems attempting to finalize the Treaty of First Transit with Earth. It would open trade routes, technology sharing, and medical advancements. Sounds good, Noah said. Who doesn't want that? The Dominion, Vexa cut in. She was rewiring a drone component. And the human corporations who make money selling garbage tech that would be obsolete 5 minutes after the treaty is signed. Vexa is unaffiliated, Lyra said, choosing the word carefully. She is an engineer with ties to a dissident network. They believe the coalition is too slow, too bureaucratic. I believe the coalition is a bunch of stiff-necked windbags who talk while people die, Vexa corrected. She looked at Lyra. No offense. None taken, Lyra replied coldly. Your network blows up supply depots. My network writes laws. We see which lasts longer. The blast last night, Noah said, pointing to the red crater on the map. You said it was a frame-up. It was, Lyra said, and the target was an empty storage floor. No casualties, but maximum visual impact. It was designed to look like a Dominion terror attack. The goal is to frighten the human populace into demanding a militarized response. If Earth militarizes its orbit, Vexa added, the treaty is dead. The Dominion gets to claim humans are savage aggressors, and the human defense contractors get trillion credit budgets to build space guns. Noah looked at the map. The complexity of it was dizzying. He was just a maintenance guy. He fixed air conditioners and rebooted routers. This was intergalactic geopolitics. So we are just sitting ducks here? Noah asked. No, Vexa said. We are hiding, but we need supplies and we need to blend in. Blend in? Noah looked at Vexa's blue hair and Lyra's 7-foot stature. Good luck with that. We have disguises, Lyra said. But we lack cultural camouflage. You will teach us. The lesson in cultural camouflage was a disaster. They decided to venture down to the building's automated market on the 10th floor to stock up on food that wasn't nutrient gel. Lyra wore a heavy trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat that covered her ears. Vexa wore a hoodie and large sunglasses. Okay, Noah whispered as they stood in the elevator. Keep it cool. If someone talks to you, just nod. And use the slang I taught you. It makes you sound local. I am vibrating, Lyra said stiffly. Vibing, Noah corrected. You are vibing, and do not say it like a threat. I am vibing, Lyra repeated, sounding like she was announcing a launch sequence. The market was quiet, just a few residents picking through the produce. Vexa immediately wandered off toward the electronics aisle. Noah stayed close to Lyra. A teenage boy with headphones around his neck bumped into Lyra near the dairy case. Whoops. My bad, the kid mumbled. Lyra turned slowly. She looked down at him. She remembered the lesson. She attempted a casual lean against the cooler, but her posture was so perfect it looked like she was posing for a statue. It is entirely Gucci, Lyra declared. Her voice projected like she was addressing a senate. No cap. The kid stared at her. What? I said, Lyra enunciated, leaning closer with intense, terrifying focus. It is Gucci. I am vibing. Are you vibing, fellow youth? The kid backed away slowly, looking terrified. I gotta go. He turned and sprinted toward the exit. Noah put his face in his hands. Okay. Abort. Abort mission. Vexa appeared with a bag of batteries and a chocolate bar. What happened? Did Lyra declare war on a child? She tried to vibe, Noah said weakly. Let's go back upstairs before security gets called. Back in the safety of 42B, the mood shifted. The levity of the market trip evaporated as the reality of their confinement set in. Noah wandered down the hallway, restless. He stopped in front of the utility room door. Rule 3. Never touch the handle. But the door wasn't fully latched. Whether the blast had jarred it loose or Vexa had been careless, there was a sliver of a gap. A faint silver light spilled out from the crack. Noah knew he should keep walking. He knew Lyra's warning had been serious, but curiosity was a physical itch. He glanced back at the living room. Lyra and Vexa were arguing in hushed tones over the map. Noah pushed the door open just an inch more. The room inside was small, but the walls were lined with soundproofing foam. Suspended in the center of the room, hanging from a magnetic rack, was a suit. It wasn't like the clothes Lyra wore. This was something else. It was tall, sleek, and terrifyingly feminine, made of a material that looked like liquid mercury frozen in time. It was lined with shimmering, opalescent threads that pulsed with a faint heartbeat. It looked like a second skin, but one designed for a goddess. It was beautiful, and it was deeply unsettling. It is called a presence amplifier. Noah jumped and spun around. Lyra was standing right behind him. She hadn't made a sound. She wasn't angry. She looked tired. "I didn't touch it," Noah said quickly, backing away. "The door was open. It is fine," Lyra said as she looked past him at the suit. "It is ceremonial armor, but it is also a broadcasting tool. When a diplomat wears this, the neurothreads link to their nervous system. It amplifies voice, intent, and charisma. It allows one person to speak to 1 billion and be understood perfectly, across all language barriers." "That sounds useful," Noah said. "It is dangerous," Lyra whispered. "If someone were to hack the suit while I was wearing it, they could make me say anything. They could make me declare war. And the world would believe it was my idea. They would feel my sincerity, even if the words were lies." She closed the door firmly. "That is why they want me, not just to kill me, to wear me." The horror of that statement hung in the air. Noah looked at Lyra, really looked at her, and saw the immense weight she was carrying. She wasn't just hiding a body, she was hiding a weapon of mass persuasion. "They won't get you," Noah said. It wasn't a promise he had the power to keep, but he said it anyway. Lyra looked at him, surprised. "You have no way to ensure that?" "I'm a maintenance guy," Noah said. "Fixing broken systems is what I do, and this system is definitely broken." He walked back to the living room. "Vexa, give me the scanner. If they found us once, they might have a lock on us. I want to sweep the apartment." Vexa tossed him a handheld device. "Knock yourself out, Sparky. I already swept it." "You swept for digital signals," Noah said. "I'm looking for analog, old school." Noah spent the next hour crawling along the baseboards and checking the vents. He checked the power grid output on the wall panel. "Here," Noah said, pointing to a fluctuation in the graph. "The voltage drops every 40 seconds, just for a microsecond. That's not a grid issue, that's a parasite draw." He followed the line to the ceiling, to the smoke detector. He dragged a chair over, climbed up, and popped the cover off the detector. Inside, wired clumsily into the building's sensor feed, was a tiny black node. It wasn't alien tech. It was human, cheap, mass-produced surveillance. "They didn't track your ship," Noah said, holding up the bug. "They tracked the apartment, the landlord, or the maintenance crew." "They are listening," Lyra said, her eyes widening. "Not just listening," Noah said, looking at the blinking red light on the node. "Transmitting, active feed." As if on cue, a heavy pounding shook the front door. City maintenance, a voice bellowed from the hallway. We have reports of a gas leak. Open up immediately or we will breach. Noah looked at Vexa. Gas leak? That is the oldest trick in the book. They are not maintenance, Lyra said, her voice dropping to a combat frequency. They are cleaners. Vexa, block the door, Noah shouted. I am on it. Vexa threw a silver cube at the door. It stuck to the metal and expanded into a hard light barrier just as the lock disintegrated under a plasma torch. The door flew open, but the intruders hit the shimmering wall of light. There were 4 of them. They wore gray coveralls, but they moved like soldiers. They raised assault rifles, quiet, suppressed, professional weapons. Flashbang, one of them shouted. A canister rolled under the hard light barrier. Eyes, Noah yelled. He grabbed a vase of water from the table and hurled it at the exposed electrical panel he had been inspecting earlier. The water hit the live wires. A massive arc of blue electricity exploded outward, showering the entryway in sparks and thick, acrid smoke. The lights in the apartment died instantly. Fire! One of the attackers yelled. Ventilation is down, can't see targets. Go! Noah grabbed Lyra's arm. The service shaft in the kitchen, it drops to the garage. What about Vexa? Lyra asked, resisting. I am right behind you, Your Highness, Vexa yelled. She triggered a pulse on her wrist, and the hard light barrier exploded outward, knocking the lead attacker backward into the hallway. They scrambled into the kitchen. Noah yanked the service grate off the wall. Ladies first. Lyra looked at the dark, narrow tunnel. She didn't hesitate. She folded her body with impossible grace, sliding into the shaft like water pouring down a drain. Vexa dove in after her. Noah squeezed in last, pulling the grate back into place just as flashlight beams cut through the smoke in the living room. Clear the room, a voice shouted. Find the suit. They slid down the chute, landing in a pile of laundry bags in the basement collection room. The air smelled of damp concrete and detergent. They sat there for a moment in the dark, breathing hard. Lyra was shaking. It wasn't fear. Noah realized as he looked at her in the dim emergency lighting. It was rage. Her hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were white. They were in our home, she hissed. They touched our things. They wanted the suit, Noah said. He saw a thin line of blue blood trickling down Lyra's arm. But then he realized it wasn't hers. It was his. A piece of shrapnel from the door had grazed his shoulder. Lyra saw it too. Her eyes snapped to the wound. The rage vanished, replaced by a sharp intake of breath. You are injured, she said. It's nothing, Noah said. Just a scratch. Sit, Lyra commanded. She didn't have her medical kit, but she tore a strip of clean fabric from her own tunic. She knelt beside him. Her fingers were cool against his skin, a stark contrast to the burning heat of the cut. She worked with efficient, gentle movements. Noah watched her face. She was so close he could see the individual segments of her irises shifting as she focused on the wound. You did well, Lyra said softly. The electrical fire, that was creative. I improvise, Noah said. His heart was hammering against his ribs, and it wasn't just from the running. Lyra finished tying the bandage. She didn't pull away. Her hand lingered on his shoulder. The bioluminescence in her wrist was pulsing a slow, steady rhythm. In my culture, Lyra said, her voice barely audible over the hum of the basement generator. To tend to another's wound, to mix blood and care, it is considered a vow, a binding of fates. I should not be this close to you. It is improper. Noah looked at her. He felt the weight of her alien upbringing, the centuries of protocol and distance she carried. But he also felt the heat of her hand. I don't know about vows, Noah said. His breath hitched as she looked up at him. And I'm not asking you to break yourself or your rules. I'm just asking you to choose. Choose what you want, not what the coalition wants, not what the treaty wants. Lyra stared at him. For a moment, the diplomat was gone. There was just a woman, far from home, looking at a man who had burned down his own living room to save her. I want, she started, but the words caught in her throat. Oh, for the love of the stars. Vexa's voice cut through the tension. They jumped apart. Vexa was sitting on a pile of laundry bags, watching them with a look that was half annoyed, half amused. If you two start reciting poetry, I am going to turn myself in, Vexa said. We need to move. This basement isn't secure. They moved to a maintenance sublevel that Noah had access to codes for. It was a small pump room, warm and noisy, but safe. Vexa sat on a crate, tinkering with the bio key she had swiped from the apartment before they fled. Noah sat opposite her. Lyra was keeping watch at the door. You really think humans are monsters, don't you? Noah asked Vexa quietly. Vexa didn't look up. We have stories, bedtime stories, the humans, the devourers. A species that burned its own planet and then looked at the sky and said, more. You are the bogeymen of the galaxy. Noah. She looked up then. Her chaotic energy was dampened. She looked young. I never lived with one before, she admitted. I expected you to be loud, greedy, mean. And? Noah asked. And you made a fake fire to save my tools, Vexa said. She gave a small, crooked smile. And you look ridiculous when you eat nutrient gel. Noah laughed. It was a genuine, tired laugh. Vexa watched him laugh. She stared at his face, fascinated by the crinkles by his eyes, the sound of it. She looked almost dazed. It is a nice sound, she mumbled, looking back down at the device in her hands. Not scary at all. Suddenly, the device in her hand beeped. It was a sharp, piercing tone. That is weird, Vexa said. She tapped the bio key. It was a small, crystalline prism used to access high-level diplomatic vaults. It is active. I thought it was locked, Noah said. It is, Vexa said. It only unlocks for authorized genetic markers. Coalition DNA. She held it out. Here, hold this. I need to calibrate the sensor. Noah took the prism. Instantly, the crystal flared with a bright, steady white light. It hummed, vibrating in Noah's palm. Vexa froze. Lyra turned from the door, her eyes wide. That is impossible, Lyra whispered. She walked over, staring at the glowing key in Noah's human hand. What did I do? Noah asked, panicked. Did I break it? No, Lyra said slowly. It recognizes you. It thinks you are kin. I'm human, Noah said. Born in Chicago, I have the birth certificate to prove it. Documents can be forged, Vexa said, her voice shaking. She pulled up a scanner on her wrist and ran it over Noah. Your DNA. There are sequences here that are dormant, but they are not human. They are spliced. Someone overwrote parts of your code. Unless someone changed you, Lyra whispered. Years ago. Noah stared at his hand. The light from the key reflected in his eyes. He felt a wave of nausea. What are you talking about? Who? Before they could answer, the wall screen in the pump room flickered to life. It was a city-wide emergency broadcast. The seal of the Earth government appeared, followed by the stern face of the global secretary. Citizens of Earth, the voice boomed. We are pleased to announce that the Treaty of First Transit will be signed in 3 days at the Spires Summit. This historic moment will secure our future. The screen shifted. However, security remains high due to threats from radical alien factions. We have obtained footage of the extremist leader planning further attacks. A video appeared. It was grainy, shot from a low angle. It showed Lyra. She was wearing the presence amplifier suit. Her voice was distorted, deep and menacing. "We will burn their cities," the video Lyra said. "We will take their world. Humans are weak. They deserve to be ruled." Noah watched in horror. The words were stitched together. The tone was wrong, but the face was undeniable. Lyra stood in the pump room, watching her own face declare war on the species she had tried to save. "That is not me," she said. Her voice was cold, brittle ice. "That is an edit. They used my private logs, my embassy recordings. They are going to make me the villain," she said. She looked at Noah, and the sadness in her eyes was devastating. "And Noah," she added softly, "they will kill you just for living with me." Noah looked at the screen, then at his glowing hand, and then at the two women who had become his entire world in 48 hours. "Let them try," Noah said. The pump room was filled with the rhythmic chugging of water filtration machinery, a mechanical heartbeat that underscored the silence between the three of them. Noah stood in the center of the cramped space, the bio-key still pulsating with a soft, white rhythm in his palm. It felt warm, uncomfortably so, like holding a living bird that was feverish. "Explain," Noah said. His voice was not loud, but it scraped against the metal walls. He looked at Lyra. "Why does this alien rock think I am part of the family?" Lyra leaned against the heavy iron door, her arms crossed. The bioluminescent veins at her wrists were dim, a murky indigo that suggested guilt. She looked at Vexa, then back to Noah. 20 years ago, Lyra began, her velvet voice dropping to a register that vibrated in Noah's chest. "Before the embassy was built, before the official contact, there were the gray markets. Human corporations wanted our technology. Our tech brokers wanted human biological data. It was illegal. It was messy." "Messy," Noah repeated. He squeezed the crystal key. "That is a sterile word for it." "They ran experiments," Lyra continued, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "They tried to bridge the interface gap. Our technology requires a specific bioelectric resonance to function. Humans do not have it. So, a corporation called Helix Dynamics attempted to splice the necessary genetic markers into human subjects to create a universal interface." Noah felt the blood drain from his face. "Helix Dynamics. My father worked for a subsidiary of theirs. He was a site manager." Vexa was already typing furiously on her wrist-mounted holographic deck. The blue light of the screen washed over her face, highlighting the sharp angles of her jaw. "I am in the archived medical grid," Vexa muttered. "Pulling your file. Noah. Not the one your doctor sees. The deep file." A moment later, she stopped typing. She looked up, and her chaotic energy was gone, replaced by a stillness that was far more unnerving. "Here," Vexa said, pointing to a floating line of data. "Age 5. There is a 6-month gap in your vaccination history. The records say you had a severe case of crimson fever and were quarantined. But the medical data is blank. It is just zeros. Someone scrubbed it." Noah stared at the blank space in the air. He tried to remember being 5. He had a vague memory of a white room, the smell of antiseptic, and a toy robot his father had given him. But the edges of the memory were blurry, like a watercolor painting left out in the rain. "They overwrote you," Lyra whispered. "They turned your genetic code into a key." Noah laughed, a short, sharp sound that had no humor in it. "I am just a guy," he insisted, his voice rising. "I fix air conditioners, I eat bad noodles, I worry about rent. I am just a normal, boring guy." Vexa looked at him. her head tilted to the side, her mechanic's eyes assessing a broken engine. Humans always say that, she murmured. Right before they explode history. Noah dropped the bio key onto the crate between them. It clattered loudly. So what do we do? Do I turn myself in? Do I let them dissect me again? No, Lyra said. The word was a gunshot. She stepped away from the door, her posture straightening into the regal diplomat she was trained to be. We use it. If you are the key, then we can open the doors they are trying to lock us out of. The treaty logs, Vexa realized, a grin slowly returning to her face. The gala tonight. The original access logs are in the portable vault. If we get those, we can prove the voice in the video was stitched. We are going to a party? Noah asked, rubbing his temples. We are going to the embassy gala, Lyra corrected. And we are going to steal the truth. The next 6 hours were a blur of frenetic activity that felt like a training montage from a spy film, only with more anxiety and strange fabrics. They retreated to a deeper, abandoned section of the maintenance tunnels to prepare. Vexa set up a mobile workshop on top of a rusted generator. She pulled a roll of fabric from her bag that looked like liquid silver. Adaptive weave, Vexa explained, draping it over Noah's shoulders. It mimics the light refraction of the surroundings. It is not invisibility, but it is close. I can configure it to look like formal evening wear. While Vexa tailored the suits with a laser cutter, Lyra took charge of Noah's behavior. Stand up, Lyra commanded. Noah straightened his spine. I know how to stand. You stand like a predator, Lyra said, circling him. Shoulders forward, head down. You look like you are ready to tackle something. At the gala, you must move like water, fluid, non-threatening. She tapped his chin, lifting it. And do not show your teeth when you smile. Among the High Council, baring teeth is a sign of aggression. You smile with your eyes. Like this. Lyra softened her expression. Her mouth remained a calm line, but her eyes crinkled at the corners, the segmented pupils dilating warmly. It was radiant. It made Noah's breath catch in his throat. Okay, Noah said, trying to mimic her. No teeth, got it. And never touch the throat, Lyra added, her hand hovering near her own neck. The throat is the seat of the voice. To touch it is to silence someone. It is a grave insult. And never accept a third drink. The third drink is a signal that you are open to negotiations of a personal nature. 2 drinks, no teeth, no throats, Noah recited. Easy. Now, Lyra said, stepping closer. We must practice the rhythm. The gala will be crowded. We will have to move in sync to avoid drawing attention. She took his right hand in her left. She placed her other hand on his shoulder. She was tall, her eyes level with his. Follow me, she whispered. She began to move. It wasn't a waltz, and it wasn't a tango. It was a shifting, sliding step that defied the standard 4/4 time of human music. It was a 3-beat followed by a pause, a heartbeat of silence before the next movement. Noah stumbled at first, stepping on her boot. Sorry, he muttered. Feel the floor, Lyra instructed, her voice right by his ear. Do not fight gravity. Use it. They tried again, and again. Slowly. Noah stopped thinking about his feet and started feeling the pressure of her hand on his back. He matched her breathing. Step, slide, pause, step, slide, pause. The musty air of the tunnel seemed to fade. For a moment, it was just the two of them, moving in a circle of dim light. Noah looked at her, the sharp lines of her face, the faint glow of her skin, and felt a pull that terrified him. It wasn't just biology. It wasn't just the interface inside him calling to her. It was her, the woman who stood in front of a drone strike without blinking. They came to a stop during one of the pauses, their bodies aligned perfectly, chests inches apart. The air between them turned heavy, charged with a static electricity that made the hair on Noah's arms stand up. Lyra looked at him, her gaze traveling from his eyes to his mouth. She didn't pull away. "You learn quickly," she said, her voice husky. "I have a good teacher," Noah replied. "All right, break it up. Lovebirds," Vexa called out, snapping a piece of elastic. "The suits are ready. Unless you want to dance your way into prison, put these on." They broke apart, the moment shattering like thin glass. Noah cleared his throat and grabbed the suit Vexa held out. He didn't look at Lyra. He couldn't. The embassy gala was held in the Neutrality Hall, a massive glass-domed structure that straddled the border between the human district and the alien diplomatic zone. Inside, gravity was set to 80% of Earth standard, giving everyone a slight, graceful bounce to their step. Floating chandeliers made of suspended ice crystals drifted above the crowd, dripping cold light onto the guests. Holographic flags of 100 nations and 7 star systems waved in the air, passing through people like ghosts. Noah adjusted his collar. The adaptive suit Vexa had made was currently mimicking a high-end tuxedo made of midnight blue velvet. It felt strange against his skin, cool and shifting. "Remember," Lyra's voice sounded in his ear, transmitted through a microscopic comms bead. "We are delegation aides. We are invisible." Lyra was stunning. Her adaptive dress was a column of white light that seemed to smoke at the hem. She wore a cowl that obscured the upper half of her face, a common fashion for diplomats seeking privacy. Vexa was disguised as a server, weaving through the crowd with a tray of glowing cocktails. "I am in position near the audio relay," Vexa whispered over the comms. "Waiting for the signal." Noah walked beside Lyra, navigating the sea of diplomats. He saw humans in sharp suits shaking hands with beings that looked like bipedal coral reefs. He saw laughter that sounded like chimes and arguments that sounded like static. It was glamorous, and it was terrifying. The smiles he saw were sharp. They were smiles like knives. "Keep your head down," Lyra murmured, guiding him with a light touch on his elbow. "The vault terminal is in the north corridor behind the crimson curtain." They moved toward the side of the hall. Suddenly, Lyra stiffened. Her fingers dug into Noah's arm, hard. "Stop," she hissed. "What is it?" Noah asked, freezing. 3 o'clock, Lyra whispered. "By the ice sculpture." Noah looked. Standing near a massive sculpture of a dove was a tall, imposing alien figure in ceremonial robes of deep red. He was surrounded by human generals and corporate executives. "That is High Counselor Vikor," Lyra said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "He is one of the architects of the peace treaty. He is supposed to be our greatest ally." "Okay," Noah said. "So why are we stopping?" "Look at his sash," Lyra said. Noah squinted. Pinned to the red silk of the counselor's sash was a small, unobtrusive brooch. It was a black spiral, the same symbol scratched into Lyra's luggage, the same symbol burned into the wall of their apartment. "The conspiracy," Lyra breathed. "It is not just humans trying to start a war. It is a coup. Vikor is working with the human hardliners. He wants the war so he can seize power back home." "We have to get those logs," Noah said, a new urgency in his voice. "If he is here, the security will be tighter than we thought." "Vexa," Lyra said into the comms. "Do it, now." "With pleasure," Vexa replied. Suddenly, the orchestra, which had been playing a soothing ambient melody, let out a screeching dissonant wail. A sonic feedback loop erupted from the speakers, shattering the champagne glasses on the nearest tables. The crowd gasped and ducked. Security drones swarmed toward the stage. Go! Lyra shoved Noah toward the crimson curtain. Noah slipped through the heavy fabric just as the chaos peaked. He found himself in a quiet, cool corridor lined with white panels. He ran, his footsteps silent on the padded floor. I am in the corridor, Noah whispered. Lyra? I am intercepted. Lyra's voice came back, tight and strained. Chief of Security, he recognizes my gait. I will draw him away. Get to the terminal. Lyra, wait! Go! Noah sprinted. He reached the end of the hall. There, embedded in the wall, was the terminal. It was a smooth slab of obsidian with no buttons, just a hand-shaped indentation. He paused, his heart hammering against his ribs. This was it. The moment he found out if he was a man or a manufactured tool. He raised his hand. He hesitated. He felt violated by a past he didn't remember, by the scientists who had touched him when he was too small to fight back. Just a guy, he whispered to himself. I am just a guy. He pressed his hand into the stone. The obsidian flashed. It didn't glow red for denied. It didn't glow green for human. It pulsed with a harmonic white light that rippled up the wall. Access granted. Subject, variant K9. Welcome. The screen dissolved, revealing the data drives. Noah grabbed the central crystal shard, the master log, and shoved it into his pocket. I got it, he said into the comms. Vexa, Lyra, I have the package. Noah, run! Vexa screamed. They cut the diversion. They are coming for you. Sirens began to howl. Not the polite alarms of the building, but the screaming klaxons of a containment breach. Noah turned to run back the way he came, but the crimson curtain was ripped aside. A squad of armored guards stood there, weapons raised. Freeze! Noah raised his hands, panic seizing his throat. Suddenly, a figure dropped from the ceiling vent behind the guards. It was Lyra. She moved like a striking viper. She swept the legs of the first guard and threw the second into the wall with a kinetic shove. Move! She yelled, grabbing Noah's hand. As her skin touched his, the reaction happened again. But this time, fueled by the adrenaline and the proximity to the vault's energy field, it was blinding. Their clasped hands flared with a brilliant, blinding white light, a beacon in the dim corridor. The guards flinched back, shielding their eyes. What are you? One of the guards shouted, terrified. Lyra looked at Noah. She looked at their glowing hands. Her expression was one of absolute shock. You are not what they told you were, she said, her voice breaking. You are not just a key. You are a catalyst. She pulled him, and they ran. They burst through a side door into the service stairwell. They scrambled down the stairs, skipping steps, sliding down railings. Vexa! Extraction! Lyra shouted. Service hatch, level B3, Vexa replied. I have hot-wired a garbage drone. It is going to be smelly, but fast. They hit the bottom floor and burst into the loading dock. A massive automated sanitation hover barge was idling there. Vexa was hanging off the side, waving frantically. Get on! Get on! They jumped onto the barge just as it accelerated out of the dock, soaring into the rainy night of the underlevels. Drones zipped after them, firing stun bolts that sizzled against the metal hull. Vexa was laughing maniacally, steering the barge with a stolen datapad. Her hair was windblown, her eyes wild. This is the most romantic felony I have ever committed, she screamed over the roar of the engines. They dove into a disused subway tunnel, shaking the drones in the labyrinth of concrete and steel. Vexa killed the engine, and the barge drifted to a halt in the darkness. Silence rushed back in, heavy and suffocating. They sat on the garbage barge, chest heaving. The adrenaline began to fade. leaving behind a sharp, bitter residue. Vexa hopped down from the pilot's seat. She turned on a flashlight and shone it on Noah. "You triggered the vault," she said. "It worked." "Yeah," Noah said, staring at his hands. "It worked." "You knew," Vexa said, turning the light on Lyra. Her voice was accusatory. "You suspected it. That is why you brought him." "I hoped," Lyra said softly. "You used him," Vexa shouted, her voice echoing in the tunnel. "You dragged him into a war zone because he was a convenient lockpick. And you treated this like a game," Lyra shouted back, stepping forward, laughing while they shot at us, calling it a romantic felony. "This is his life, Vexa. This is not one of your hacker simulations." "I was keeping us alive," Vexa snapped. "I was keeping us sane." "Stop," Noah yelled. His voice boomed in the tunnel. Both women froze. Noah stood up. He was shaking, but he stood tall. "Stop talking about me like I am an object, like I am a tool or a toy. Neither of you gets to decide what happens to my body anymore. Not the scientists, not the coalition, and not you." He looked at Lyra. "You didn't tell me what that vault would feel like. It felt like dying." He looked at Vexa. "And this isn't funny, I almost got shot." Silence stretched between them. The dripping of water from the tunnel ceiling sounded like a clock ticking. Lyra took a slow breath. She lowered her head. The bioluminescence in her veins faded to a dull, contrite gray. "You are right," Lyra said. Her voice was stripped of all its diplomatic armor. "I apologize. Noah, fully and sincerely, I was desperate. I saw a way to save my people, and I forgot to protect you. It was unforgivable." Vexa looked at Lyra, surprised. She had never heard the diplomat apologize like that. Vexa kicked a pebble into the dark water of the track drainage. "I am sorry too. I use humor to deflect terror. It is a bad habit." Noah let out a long sigh. He sat back down on the edge of the barge. "Okay, apology accepted, but from now on, I make the calls about my own hands." He looked up at Lyra. She was standing just outside the circle of the flashlight beam, looking lost. "Come here," Noah said gently. Lyra stepped closer. She hesitated. She looked at his shoulder, then his face. "May I?" she asked quietly. "May I touch you?" It was a question of permission, not ability. It was the choice he had asked for. Noah nodded, his throat tight. "Yes." Lyra leaned down. She didn't kiss him. Instead, she slowly lowered her head until her forehead rested against his. It was electric. Noah closed his eyes. He didn't just feel the coolness of her skin, he felt a hum, a resonance that vibrated through his skull and down his spine. It was a sensation of absolute safety, of being known. It was an alien sign of trust, a telepathic bridging of guards. He reached up and placed his hands on her waist. The contact was grounding. "I see you," Lyra whispered against his skin. "Not the key. You. I see you too." Noah breathed. The desire between them was raw, a physical weight in the damp air. It broke every cultural taboo Lyra had been raised with. It broke every safety protocol Noah had ever known. But it was chosen. It was honest. Vexa watched them from the other side of the barge. She lowered the flashlight. She saw the way Lyra's posture softened, the way Noah leaned into her. Vexa looked away, staring into the darkness of the tunnel. Her expression wasn't jealous. Exactly. It was a profound, aching longing. She wanted that. She wanted to be the one someone leaned into. But she knew she was too sharp, too chaotic. She was the diversion, not the destination. She swallowed the lump in her throat and turned back to her wrist computer. She slotted the crystal shard Noah had stolen into her reader. "Guys," Vexa said, her voice shaking, "we have a problem, a big one." Lyra pulled back from Noah, though her hand lingered on his arm. "What is it? The frame-up?" "It is worse," Vexa said. She projected the data into the air. It was a countdown. "The logs show the ceremony as a trap," Vexa explained, her eyes wide with horror. "High Counselor Vikor and the human bloc aren't just staging an attack. They are triggering a Wormgate prototype." "A Wormgate?" Noah asked. "Here, in the atmosphere?" "It will tear the sky open," Lyra said, reading the data. "It will look like a massive invasion fleet arriving. It will justify total martial law." "And the activation sequence," Vexa said, pointing to a coordinate on the map. "It is not at the embassy. It is a remote relay." She looked at Noah. "It is scheduled to begin from the roof of the spire," Vexa said. "Our apartment building. Tonight." Noah looked at the countdown. 2 hours. "We have to go back," Noah said. "We have to go home." The return to the spire was not a homecoming. It was an infiltration. They moved through the service tunnels beneath the building, silent and on edge, like ghosts haunting their own lives. When they finally forced the maintenance lock on the 42nd floor and stepped into apartment 42B, the silence that greeted them was absolute. It was not the silence of an empty room. It was the silence of a grave. Noah stepped inside first, his weapon, a heavy wrench he had salvaged from the barge, raised. He lowered it slowly as his eyes adjusted to the gloom. The apartment was pristine. The chaotic mess of Vexa's engineering projects was gone. The map Lyra had projected was gone. The coffee mugs, the nutrient gel packets, the stray wires, even the faint scent of ozone and citrus were gone. The air smelled of industrial bleach and scorched air. "They cleaned it," Noah whispered, the words feeling too loud in the dead space. "Everything is gone." "Not everything," Lyra said. Her voice was tight, vibrating with a frequency that made the hair on Noah's arm stand up. She was standing in the center of the living room, staring at the far wall. Noah followed her gaze, burned into the plaster. Right where the panoramic window met the drywall was a symbol. It wasn't painted. It had been seared into the surface with a plasma torch. The edges bubbled and black. It was a single, jagged, descending spiral, the mark of the coup. "They were here," Vexa said, her voice unusually small. She walked over to the kitchen island, running a finger along the countertop. No fingerprints, no DNA trace. They scrubbed the place down to the molecular level. It is like we never existed. "This is a message," Lyra said, her eyes fixed on the black spiral. "It says, we can reach you anywhere. It says you have no sanctuary." Noah felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. He walked to the window. Below, the city was a cauldron of unrest. He could see the flashing lights of riot drones swarming around the embassy district miles away. The news feeds projected on the neighboring skyscrapers were hysterical, painting the sky with headlines of impending war. "We are not safe here," Noah said. "We need to grab whatever we can and leave." "Wait," Vexa said. She had pried open the panel of the building's main elevator call box in the hallway. "Look at this." Noah and Lyra crowded around her. Inside the wiring of the elevator panel, a small pulsing device had been spliced into the main fiber optic trunk. "A transmitter," Vexa said. "High frequency. It is tapping into the building's power core." "What is it for?" Noah asked. "It is a signal booster," Vexa explained, her eyes darting across the readouts on her wrist computer. "It is routing massive amounts of energy to the roof, to the relay station. Noah, they are priming the building. This is the launch point for the false invasion signal. The Wormgate simulation, Lyra breathed. They are going to trigger it from right above our heads. Lyra turned away, walking back into the living room. She pulled a small silver communication disc from her pocket. It was an emergency beacon, the kind that bypassed local networks. Do not, Vexa warned. If you broadcast, they will triangulation you. I have to warn the High Council, Lyra said, her face set in stone. If I can reach the Loyalist faction, they can jam the signal from orbit. She pressed her thumb to the disc. It hummed, projecting a small, shimmering hologram of a face. An older alien, with skin like weathered slate and eyes that held the weight of centuries. Ambassador Rule, Lyra said, relief flooding her voice. This is Lyra Sale. I have uncovered a plot within the... Lyra! The ambassador cut her off. His voice was cold. There was no warmth, no recognition of their friendship. The council has reviewed the evidence, the video logs, the unauthorized access to the vault. The video was faked, Lyra pleaded. Vikor is behind it. He is working with the humans to... Stand down, Lyra, the ambassador said. Surrender yourself to the nearest Dominion patrol immediately. If you persist in this madness, you will be designated a traitor of the First Order. The penalty is public execution. Rule, please, Lyra whispered. Listen to me. The transmission is tracked, the ambassador said. Do not contact me again. The hologram winked out. Lyra stood there, staring at the empty air. The silence in the room returned, heavier than before. She looked small, suddenly. The regal diplomat, the woman who could command a room with a glance, looked like she had been hollowed out. They are all compromised, Lyra said softly. Or they are too afraid to listen. I am alone. You are not alone, Noah said fiercely. He stepped toward her, grabbing her hand. You have us. Lyra looked at him, her eyes wet. Noah, look outside. Noah looked. On the street level, 40 floors down, a crowd had gathered. They were smashing the windows of a shop that sold alien imports. He could see banners waving, Human Earth, Human Future, and marching alongside the riot police were alien soldiers in black armor. The coup faction's enforcers. The humans hate us, Lyra said, and my people want to execute me. There is no us anymore. There is just targets. Noah turned away from the window, frustration boiling over. He paced the room. We need leverage. We need to know who is funding the human side of this. The coup leaders need human contractors to build the relay, right? He walked over to the pile of gear Vexa had dumped on the floor. He picked up the datapad he had stolen from the barge. He pulled up the file on the rooftop relay schematics. Let's see who built this thing, Noah muttered. He scrolled to the vendor manifest. The logo at the top of the document was a stylized double helix in blue and silver. Helix Dynamics, Security Solutions. Noah froze. The room seemed to tilt. Helix, Noah whispered. The company that experimented on you, Vexa said, looking over his shoulder. Not just that, Noah said. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. My father. He didn't just work for a subsidiary. He was a project lead for Helix. He transferred to the Seattle branch 6 months ago. He looked up at Lyra, his face pale. He called me, Noah said. 6 months ago, and out of the blue, he said he knew a guy who managed a high-end building. Said he could get me a deal on a rental, a fresh start, he called it. The realization hit him like a physical blow to the gut. The rent, Noah said, a bitter laugh bubbling up in his chest. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a mistake. He planted me here. Lyra's eyes widened. He put you in this apartment because he knew we were in the building. He knew your genetics were the key to the vault. I wasn't a tenant, Noah said, his voice cracking. I was a spare part, kept in storage until they needed me. He threw the datapad across the room. It smashed against the wall, cracking the plaster near the black spiral. My own father, Noah spat. He sold me out to start a war. Lyra moved to him then, disregarding the distance she usually kept. She placed her hands on his shoulders, forcing him to look at her. You are not what he made you, Lyra said intensely. You are who you chose to be in the tunnels. You are the man who saved me. I am a lab experiment, Noah said, looking down. You are Noah, Lyra said, and you are the only reason I am still standing. Vexa watched them from the shadows of the kitchen. Her face was unreadable. She looked at the smashed datapad, then at the transmitter she had found, and finally at the two of them standing in the wreckage of their temporary home. We need to sleep, Vexa said abruptly. Her voice was flat. We cannot stop the relay if we are dead on our feet. We hit the roof at dawn. They took shifts. No one really slept. Noah sat by the door, the wrench in his hand, staring at the grain of the floorboards. Lyra sat by the window, watching the storm clouds gather over the city, lightning flickering like faulty wiring in the sky. When the gray light of dawn finally filtered through the smoke and rain, Noah stood up. His back ached. Vexa, Noah called out softly. You are up. We need to prep the gear. There was no answer. Vexa. He walked into the spare room where she had set up her sleeping mat. The room was empty. Her bag was gone. Her tools were gone. The window was open, the wind blowing the curtains inward. On the floor, weighted down by a heavy bolt, was a scrap of paper. Noah picked it up. Lyra appeared in the doorway, sensing the disturbance. Where is she? Lyra asked. Noah handed her the note. It was scrawled in Vexa's jagged handwriting. Calculated the odds. Survival probability with 3 targets. 0. Survival probability if I split 18%. Do not hate me. Survive. Lyra stared at the paper. Her hand trembled just once before she crushed the note in her fist. She left us, Lyra whispered. The betrayal was etched into her face, deeper than the fear had been. She ran. Maybe she has a plan, Noah said, though he didn't believe it. Maybe she went to get help. She is a survivor, Lyra said bitterly. That is what she always told me. Survivors do not look back. Lyra turned away, walking to the window. Her shoulders were rigid, but Noah could see the way she held herself, as if she were trying to keep from shattering. She had lost her status, her home, her reputation, and now, her only friend. We do this alone, Lyra said. Her voice was hard, cold iron. We go to the roof, we destroy the relay, or we die trying. The ascent to the roof was a nightmare of verticality. The elevators were locked down, monitored by the coup's security grid. They took the fire stairs, climbing 40 floors in the humid, stagnant air of the stairwell. By the time they reached the roof access door, Noah's legs burned, and his lungs felt like they were filled with broken glass. Ready? Lyra asked. She held a kinetic pulse pistol she had taken from the guards at the gala. Ready as I'll ever be, Noah said, gripping his wrench. They burst through the door and into the storm. The roof of the spire was a vast landscape of wet concrete, HVAC units, and communication arrays. The rain was torrential, driven sideways by a gale-force wind. Lightning tore the sky apart, illuminating the city below in stark, strobe light flashes of white and violet. In the center of the roof, surrounded by a lattice of humming power cables, stood the relay. It was a massive, rotating ring of alien metal, glowing with an ominous red light that pulsed in time with the transmitter Vexa had found. "There!" Noah shouted over the roar of the wind. "The power coupling, if I can smash the regulator, it will overload." They ran toward the machine, splashing through puddles that reflected the neon chaos of the city. They were halfway there when the ambush was sprung. Spotlights blinded them from the upper gantries. Figures materialized from the rain, armored silhouettes, sleek and deadly. "Hold fire!" a voice boomed. Noah skidded to a halt, shielding his eyes. Standing between them and the relay was a squad of soldiers. Half were human contractors, wearing the blue and silver tactical gear of Helix Dynamics. The other half were aliens, tall and imposing in the black armor of the Coup faction. A man stepped forward from the Helix line. He wasn't Noah's father, but he wore the same uniform. He held a heavy rifle leveled at Noah's chest. "Noah Cade," the man said, his voice amplified by a helmet speaker. "Your father is very disappointed. He expected you to be smarter than this." "Go to hell," Noah screamed. "Hostile verified," the man said boredly. "Secure the asset. Kill the alien." The rooftop erupted. Lyra moved faster than the eye could follow. She dove behind a ventilation unit as plasma bolts sizzled through the air where she had been standing. She returned fire, her pulse pistol knocking a Helix soldier off his feet. Noah scrambled for cover, diving behind a generator. Bullets sparked against the metal casing. "Lyra, flank them!" Noah yelled. "I am pinned!" Lyra shouted back. The alien soldiers were advancing, their movements coordinated and precise. They weren't trying to kill Noah. They were boxing him in. They wanted him alive. They wanted the key. Noah saw an opening. A bundle of cables ran along the ground toward the enemy line. If he could sever them, he might cut the lights. He lunged from cover, swinging the wrench. He never made it. A shock whip coiled around his leg. The current hit him like a lightning bolt, seizing every muscle in his body. Noah screamed as he slammed into the wet concrete, convulsing. A Helix soldier planted a boot on his chest, pinning him down. The barrel of a rifle was pressed against his forehead. "Stop!" the soldier yelled, "or I paint the roof with his brains!" Lyra froze. She was 30 feet away, crouched behind a barrier, her pistol raised. She looked at Noah, eyes wide, breath coming in ragged gasps. "Drop the weapon," the soldier commanded. "Surrender! Lyra, sail! The world is watching. We have drones recording right now. Show them how the alien corrupted the poor human boy." Noah looked at Lyra. He saw the calculation in her eyes. He saw the despair. "Don't do it," Noah wheezed. "Lyra, don't!" Lyra slowly stood up. She lowered the pistol. She looked at the soldier, and then she looked at the alien squad leader standing behind him. She took a deep breath. She didn't drop the gun. Instead, she stood to her full height, her posture shifting into something ancient and terrifying. She reached up and tapped the throat of her suit, the universal sign of diplomatic address. But when she spoke, it wasn't a request. She used the voice. It was a forbidden technique, a bioharmonic frequency reserved for the highest echelons of coalition leadership. It was designed to override the auditory processing centers of any species, forcing a momentary, paralyzed compliance. To use it without council authorization was a crime worse than murder. It stripped a diplomat of their rank, their citizenship, their soul. "Kneel." The word didn't come from her mouth. It seemed to erupt from the air itself, a sonic boom that vibrated in the marrow of their bones. The effect was instantaneous. The alien soldiers dropped, their nervous systems overloaded by the command frequency, their knees hitting the concrete with a sickening crack. The humans, less susceptible but still overwhelmed by the sheer acoustic pressure, stumbled back, clutching their ears, screaming. The soldier standing on Noah reeled backward, dropping his rifle. Lyra collapsed to one knee, blood running from her nose. The effort had nearly broken her. "Run!" she gasped. Noah scrambled up. He grabbed Lyra, hauling her to her feet. She was dead weight for a second. Then she found her footing. They ran. Not toward the relay. It was too heavily guarded by the recovering squad. But toward the edge of the roof, to the maintenance gantry that connected to the next building. They sprinted through the rain, bullets and plasma bolts chewing up the ground at their heels. They leaped the gap, landing hard on the metal grating of the neighboring tower. They didn't stop. They scrambled down a service ladder, kicked open a door, and collapsed into a storage room filled with old signage and cable spools. Noah slammed the door and jammed a steel pipe through the handle. They were safe. For a moment. The room was dark, lit only by the lightning flashing through a high, grimy window. The sound of the rain was a deafening drumbeat on the metal roof. Lyra slid down the wall, her chest heaving. She wiped the blood from her nose with the back of her hand. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. "You used the voice," Noah said, dropping to his knees beside her. "Lyra, you are a criminal now." "I am worse than a criminal," Lyra whispered. She stared at her hands as if they were covered in filth. "I forced them. I took away their will. It is the antithesis of everything I believe, everything I am." She looked up at him, and the mask finally broke. The diplomat crumbled. "I am tired," she choked out, tears mixing with the blood on her face. "I am so tired of being useful. Useful to the council, useful to the treaty, useful to the mission. I have spent my entire life being a perfectly calibrated instrument." She hit the floor with her fist, a sound of pure frustration. "I just want to be real," she cried. "Not a symbol, not a weapon, not a key. Real." Noah reached out. He didn't hesitate this time. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears. "You are real," Noah said. His voice was rough, fierce. "You are the most real thing I have ever known. You chose to save me. You chose to break your own laws to keep me alive. That wasn't a diplomat. That was you." Lyra looked at him, her segmented eyes searching his face for any sign of fear, any sign that he saw her as a monster for what she had done on the roof. She found none. "If I cross this line with you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the thunder, "if I stop being the diplomat, will you still see me tomorrow? Or will I just be another broken thing?" "Only if you want it," Noah answered. "I see you, Lyra. I see all of it. And I'm not going anywhere." She nodded, a small, jerky motion. She leaned forward and their lips met. It wasn't a movie kiss, no, it was desperate. It tasted of rain, copper, and salt. It was relief and war all at once. It was two people standing on the edge of the abyss, deciding that if they were going to fall, they would fall together. Noah pulled her closer, feeling the cold dampness of her suit and the burning heat of her skin beneath it. Lyra made a sound in her throat, a soft alien trill of surrender, clutching his jacket like it was the only solid thing in the universe. For a minute, the conspiracy didn't exist. The war didn't exist. There was only the heat in the dark room. Then, the door handle rattled violently. They broke apart, breathless, turning toward the sound. Noah grabbed his wrench. Lyra raised her pulse pistol, her hand steady again. The steel pipe jamming the door bent. The door flew open. A figure stumbled in, wet, muddy, and bleeding. It was Vexa. She looked terrible. Her blue hair was plastered to her skull. Her coveralls were torn, revealing a nasty burn on her side. She was holding her ribs with one hand and clutching a glowing, jagged shard of crystal in the other. "Did I interrupt?" Vexa wheezed, leaning against the doorframe. She looked at them, at the proximity, and a flicker of pain crossed her face before she buried it under a manic grin. Please tell me you didn't finish saving the world without me. Vexa, Noah shouted. You came back. I didn't run, Vexa rasped, sliding down to sit on a cable spool. I went to get this. She held up the crystal shard. It pulsed with a chaotic, angry red light. I infiltrated the lower levels of the Ku faction, Vexa said, coughing. I hacked their primary node. I needed to know how they were powering the Wormgate. The energy requirements are impossible for a rooftop relay. They need a battery, a biological one. Lyra stepped forward, her face paling. A resonance core. Yes, Vexa said. She looked at Lyra, and her eyes were full of a terrifying pity. The note. I lied. I went to find the schematic, and I found the worst truth. Vexa tossed the crystal to Noah. He caught it. It felt hot. The false invasion, Vexa said. It is not just a hologram. They are opening a real micro-rift to keep it stable. They need a biosignature that matches the specific frequency of the treaty stone, a signature that can anchor two worlds. Me, Lyra whispered. She backed away until she hit the wall. They need me. That is why they didn't kill you on the roof, Vexa said. That is why they ambushed us. They don't just want you framed. Lyra, they want you used. Vexa took a shaky breath. They are going to strap you into that machine, Vexa said, and they are going to burn you out like a fuse to open the sky. Lyra went cold. The horror of it was total. They didn't just want to destroy her reputation. They wanted to consume her essence to fuel the very war she had spent her life trying to prevent. Noah looked at the red crystal, then at Lyra. They aren't touching her, Noah said. His voice was low, dangerous. They are coming, Vexa warned. I led them away, but they will track the shard. We have maybe 20 minutes before the ceremony starts, before they activate the machine. Then we have 20 minutes to end this, Lyra said. She looked at Noah, and the vulnerability of the kiss was gone, replaced by a cold, diamond-hard resolve. If I am the battery, then I am also the bomb. Let's go. The rain battered the metal roof of the storage room, sounding like 1,000 frantic fingers trying to scratch their way inside. In the gloom, illuminated only by the angry red pulse of the stolen crystal shard and the jagged flash of lightning through the high window. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and wet concrete. We have to surrender, Lyra said. Her voice was brittle, stripped of its usual melodic command. She was pacing the small space, her hands clasping and unclasping. If I turn myself in, the hunt stops. They will have their resonance core. They won't need to tear the city apart to find me. Vexa sat on a spool of fiber optic cable, pressing a dirty rag against the burn on her side. She looked up, incredulous. Are you malfunctioning? If you surrender, you do not save the city. You hand them the match to burn it down. They will strap you into that machine, drain your life force until you are a husk, and use your death to open a door for a war fleet. That is a tactical failure, Lyra. That is a zero-sum game. Then what is the alternative? Lyra snapped, turning on her. Look at the feeds. Vexa, the humans are rioting. My people are being beaten in the streets. If I stay free, the chaos escalates. If I surrender, I can at least try to negotiate from the inside. You cannot negotiate with a circuit board, Vexa spat, wincing as she shifted. And you cannot negotiate with fanatics. You are just a component to them. Noah stood between them, leaning against the rusted doorframe. He felt heavy, the weight of his father's betrayal, the revelation of his own altered genetics, and the terrifying reality of the Wormgate was pressing down on his chest. But as he watched Lyra, the woman who had commanded soldiers to kneel with a single word, crumble under the guilt of potential civilian casualties, he knew he couldn't let her do it. "She is right," Noah said. Lyra looked at him, relieved. "See? Noah understands the logic of sacrifice." "No," Noah said, his voice hard. "Vexa is right. You are not surrendering." Lyra's expression hardened. "This is not your choice." "It is my choice," Noah said, stepping into her space. "Because I am done with people I care about being used as tools. I was a tool for 20 years and didn't even know it. My father used me. The corporation used me. I will not let them use you." He gestured to the datapad Vexa had thrown on the floor earlier. "Vexa, show her the comms log you found, the encrypted one." Vexa tapped her wrist computer, projecting a holographic document into the damp air. It was a series of intercepted messages, decoded by Vexa's algorithms. "Read it," Noah commanded. Lyra squinted at the floating text. Her eyes widened. "This is a trade agreement between the Human Liberty Bloc and High Counselor Vikor," Vexa explained grimly. "It is a contract. The humans provide the security infrastructure and the scapegoats, that is us, to justify the crackdown. In exchange, they get exclusive rights to scavenge the Dominion tech that gets confiscated during the purge." "And Vikor," Lyra whispered, reading further. "He gets the justification to dissolve the Reformation Council. He calls us weak. He calls us traitors. He uses the human aggression as a pretext to seize total military control of the coalition. It is a mutual benefit society," Noah said. "They want a war, both sides. The humans want the guns and the aliens want the power. If you surrender, you give them exactly what they need to start the engine." Lyra stared at the text. The logic was undeniable. Her sacrifice wouldn't buy peace. It would purchase a massacre. "We need to break the machine," Lyra said softly. "Not the relay on the roof. That is just the antenna. We need to break the source." "The Wormgate stabilizer," Vexa said. She pulled up a blueprint of the embassy complex. "The device that focuses the energy. Without it, the relay on the roof is just a very expensive radio tower. If they try to open a gate without the stabilizer, the energy will dissipate harmlessly into the ionosphere." "Where is it?" Noah asked. Vexa pointed to a level deep beneath the embassy structure. "Sub-level 5, the Vault of the Still Horizon. It is the most secure facility on the planet. Biolocks, hard light grids, automated sentries." "We steal it," Noah said. Vexa blinked. "Excuse me?" "We steal the stabilizer," Noah repeated. "We infiltrate the embassy, go down to sub-level 5, and we take their toy away before the ceremony starts." "That is suicide," Lyra said, though a spark of her old fire was returning to her eyes. "No," Noah said, gripping his wrench. "Suicide is walking out there and letting them win. This is just a really aggressive maintenance call." The plan was a patchwork of desperation and genius, cobbled together in 10 minutes while the storm raged outside. They had to move fast. The ceremony was scheduled to begin in less than 2 hours. They moved through the city's underbelly, navigating the labyrinth of sewage tunnels and forgotten subway lines that Noah knew like the back of his hand. The air down here was thick and smelled of rot, a stark contrast to the sterile ozone of the spire. "Okay," Vexa whispered as they waded through knee-deep water. "We need operational handles, code names." Lyra, who was holding her pristine diplomatic robes above the sludge with an expression of profound distaste, did not look amused. "We are not doing code names. We have to," Vexa insisted. "For operational security. I will be Shadow Weaver. Noah, You can be Iron Wrench. And Lyra, Vexa paused, grinning in the dark. You are Princess Sparkles. Lyra stopped walking. She turned slowly to look at Vexa. Even in the dim light of their headlamps, her glare was withering. If you call me that on the comms, I will leave you in this sewer. Princess Sparkles is compromised, Vexa whispered into her wrist mic. I repeat, the princess is hostile. I hate you, Lyra said, but there was no venom in it. It was a grounding ritual. The banter was the only thing keeping the terror at bay. They reached the access point for the embassy's waste filtration system. Noah bypassed the electronic lock with a physical override, jamming the tumblers with a piece of wire. Low tech beats high tech, Noah muttered as the hatch hissed open. They climbed up into the embassy's lower maintenance decks. Here, the walls changed from concrete to smooth white polymer. The hum of alien machinery was everywhere, a soothing, rhythmic thrum. Cameras, Vexa hissed, stopping at a corner. She tapped her wrist. Executing light lag hack. I am looping the last 10 seconds of footage. To the security AI, this hallway is empty and boring forever. Move, Noah signaled. They sprinted down the pristine corridor. They encountered a patrol of 2 drone sentries. Vexa scrambled their sensors with a burst of static noise from her rig, and Noah knocked them out of the air with his wrench before they could reboot. Sub-level 5, Lyra said, pointing to a heavy blast door. This is it, the restricted zone. I can't hack this, Vexa said, looking at the complex bioscanner. It requires a council-level clearance. Lyra stepped forward. She smoothed her dirty robes. She wiped the smudge of sewer grime from her cheek. In an instant, she transformed. Her posture became rigid, her chin lifted, and her eyes went cold and distant. She pressed her hand to the scanner. Identity confirmed, a computerized voice intoned. Diplomat Sael, access restricted. You are flagged for detention. Override code, Zenith Alpha 1, Lyra said. Her voice was steady, imbued with absolute authority. I am conducting an emergency audit of the containment field. Open the door, or I will have your central processor scrap-coded. The computer hesitated. It was a machine, bound by logic, but the override code was ancient, a back door built for the highest nobility. Audit authorized, the voice said. Welcome, diplomat. The blast door groaned and slid open. They stepped inside. The chamber was vast, suspended over a dark chasm. In the center, held in place by humming magnetic fields, was the stabilizer. It was breathtaking. 3 concentric rings of gold and silver metal rotated slowly around a central core of pure white light. The rings were engraved with glyphs that seemed to writhe and change as they spun. It looked like a halo made of knives, beautiful and sharp. Grab it, Noah said. Vexa, can you disengage the field? Working on it, Vexa said, her fingers flying across her holographic keyboard. The magnetic containment is tricky. If I drop it too fast, the stabilizer will destabilize one, which means boom. Gently, Noah urged. The rings slowed. The humming dropped in pitch. Field down, Vexa said. On, take it. Lyra stepped onto the central platform. She reached out with both hands to grasp the glowing core. As her fingers brushed the metal, a shockwave of energy blasted through the room. Lyra screamed. She arched her back, her body seizing up. The stabilizer flared blindingly bright, the white light turning a violent, thrashing violet. It is binding to her, Vexa yelled, shielding her eyes. It recognizes the resonance core. It is trying to merge her nervous system with the device. Lyra fell to her knees. Her hands stuck to the device as if magnetized. Her veins were glowing so brightly they looked like they were burning through her skin. Let go, Noah shouted, running toward her. I can't, Lyra gasped, her voice distorted by pain. It is inside my head. Noah didn't think. He didn't calculate. He lunged forward and slammed his hands over hers. The shock was immediate. It felt like sticking his fingers into a live socket, but multiplied by 1,000. He felt the alien data screaming through his nerves, a torrent of light and sound and math he couldn't comprehend. But his genetics, the altered spliced code Helix had put inside him, acted as a buffer. He was the ground wire. He gritted his teeth, forcing his own biosignature to push back against the machine. Let her go! Noah roared. The light flickered. The violet faded back to white. The magnetic hold broke. Lyra slumped backward, gasping for air. Noah fell next to her, his hands smoking slightly. The stabilizer went dark, falling clattering onto the metal grating. It was just a cold, heavy object now. You stopped it, Lyra wheezed, looking at Noah with awe. You shared the load. I told you, Noah said, clutching his shaking hands. Partners. They sat there for a moment on the edge of the chasm, the adrenaline crashing out of them. Vexa ran over, checking the device, then checking them. We have it, Vexa said, her voice trembling. We actually have it. She looked at Noah, then at Lyra. The reality of what they had just done and what they were about to face settled over them. I need to say something, Vexa said suddenly. Before we go back out there, before we probably die. She looked at Noah. I wanted to hate you. When you moved in, I wanted you to be just another dumb human. But you are not. Vexa looked down at her boots. I make jokes because I am terrified. I am always the sidekick, the mechanic, the one who fixes things while the heroes kiss in the rain. I am scared of being left behind. She looked up, her eyes fierce and wet. I want this too. Noah, I want a home. I want someone to look at me the way you look at her. And I hate that I want it, because I don't want to fight her for you. Lyra looked at Vexa, her expression softening. Vexa, I desire him too, Lyra admitted. Her voice was quiet, confessing a sin. It frightens me. I was trained to reject attachment, to be a vessel for the state, wanting him, wanting this life. It makes me feel reckless. It makes me feel like I am betraying everything I was built to be. Noah looked at both of them. The two alien women who had turned his life upside down. One who needed armor to survive, and one who needed permission to feel. I am not a prize, Noah said firmly. I am not a trophy to be won in a war between you two. He reached out, taking Vexa's hand with his left and Lyra's hand with his right. I care about you both, Noah said, more than I should. But if we do this, if we survive this, we do it with clarity. No secrets, no silent resentment. If we cross lines, we cross them because we all choose to. Vexa looked at his hand, then at Lyra. Clarity, she repeated. I can do clarity, closeness without cages. A partnership, Lyra said, squeezing Noah's hand. Openly, not as property, not as secrets. Agreed, Noah said. Now let's get this thing out of here and ruin a party. They scrambled out of the sub-level just as the silent alarms finally tripped. The embassy went into full lockdown. Blast doors slammed shut. Red lights bathed the corridors in blood, and the wail of sirens pierced the air. Public address system! Vexa shouted as they ran back toward the waste tunnels. Listen! A voice boomed through the complex, echoing off the white walls. Alert! Terrorist activity detected. The fugitive Lyra Sale has breached the secure perimeter. She is armed and dangerous. Citizens are advised to shelter in place. Shoot to kill authorized. They are spinning it fast, Lyra said, panting as they slid down a ladder into the muck of the sewers. They control the narrative, Vexa said. We need to hijack the microphone. They emerged from the sewer grate into a back alley in the lower district. The city was in chaos. Hover cars were grounded. People were running through the streets, screaming. Above them, massive holographic screens that usually played advertisements were now broadcasting the emergency alert, with Lyra's face plastered everywhere. Vexa, Noah said. Can you hit the broadcast relay from here? I can try, Vexa said. She slammed the stolen stabilizer down on a crate and pulled out her deck. I need a boost. Connect the stabilizer to my rig. I can use its residual power to punch through their firewall. Noah wired the alien device to Vexa's wrist computer. Do it, Vexa typed furiously. Bypassing protocols, encrypting source, eating their firewall for breakfast, and send. Above them, the giant holographic screen flickered. The image of the stern news anchor dissolved into static. Then, a message appeared. Just text. Simple. Stark white letters on a black background. You are being played. The invasion is a lie. The treaty is a trap. Look up. The message flashed across every screen in the city, on data pads, on billboards, on the sides of blimps. It is working, Noah said, watching the street. A group of riot police had cornered a family of aliens near a storefront, but as the message flashed, the humans in the crowd stopped throwing rocks. They looked at the screens. They looked at the police. Someone pulled out a phone and started filming the police brutality. Hey! A human shouted at the cops. Why are you hitting them? The screen says it's a lie. Disregard the transmission, a police drone blared. It is terrorist propaganda. But the seed of doubt was planted. The chaos shifted. It wasn't human against alien anymore. It was people against the authority. They are confused, Lyra said, watching the scene. Confusion creates hesitation. Hesitation buys us time. Not enough time, Vexa said, pointing to the sky. Look, it was time. The sun had set, and the ceremony had begun. From the roof of the spire, their home, a beam of red light shot straight up into the clouds. It was massive, a pillar of energy that punched a hole through the storm. The sky tore open. It didn't look like a doorway. It looked like a wound. A shimmering, jagged circle of artificial horizon began to expand above the city. Inside the circle, it wasn't space. It was a swirling, chaotic void of purple and black energy. The wind picked up, howling through the streets as the atmospheric pressure dropped. The sound of the rift opening was a low, grinding moan that vibrated in their teeth. That is a worm gate, Lyra whispered, staring up at the nightmare they had tried to prevent. It is unstable, Vexa said, looking at the readings on the stabilizer they had stolen. Without this device, that gate is going to fluctuate. It won't just let ships through. It might collapse and take half the city with it. We have the stabilizer, Noah said, but the gate is opening anyway. Because they are forcing it, Lyra said. They are brute forcing the connection using the rooftop relay. She turned to Noah and Vexa. The rain plastered her hair to her face, but her eyes were burning with a terrifying resolve. If we fail now, Lyra said, her voice cutting through the wind, history becomes a weapon. They will write that we destroyed ourselves, then we have to get back to the roof. Back to the roof? Noah asked, looking at the spire, which was now surrounded by gunships. How? We climb, Lyra said, and we fight. The sky above the spire did not just break, it tore open like wet paper. The sound was a low, grinding moan that vibrated in the teeth of every citizen in New Seattle. Above the ceremonial platform where the treaty was meant to be signed, the artificial horizon expanded. It was a swirling vortex of violent violet and bruised black. a bruise on the atmosphere that grew wider with every passing second. Gravity in the district began to fluctuate. Debris floated upward. Rain fell sideways. Noah ran. His lungs burned and his legs felt like lead. But he ran. Beside him, Vexa moved with a limping feral grace, clutching the stolen stabilizer shard against her chest. Lyra led the charge, her white diplomatic robe stained with sewer muck and oil, moving with the terrifying focus of a warhead finding its target. They smashed through a barricade of abandoned vehicles near the base of the spire. The streets were a chaotic sea of panic. Media drones swarmed the air like angry insects, broadcasting the apocalypse to billions of screens. On the massive holographic displays attached to the skyscrapers, Noah saw the faces of the politicians. The human secretary and the alien high counselors stood on the podium miles away. Protected by force fields, they were smiling. It was a tight, brittle smile, but it was there. They were watching the sky tear open, and they were smiling because the fear was the currency they had just finished minting. "They are accelerating the sequence," Vexa yelled over the wind. "The rooftop relay is pulling power from the entire city grid. If that worm gate fully opens without the stabilizer, it won't be an invasion path. It will be a gravity well. It will suck the spire and half the district into the void." "We have to get to the roof," Lyra commanded. "Now!" The lobby of the spire was a war zone. Helix Dynamics contractors were setting up a perimeter, reinforced by the black-armored soldiers of the alien coup faction. "Cover!" Noah shouted. They dove behind a concrete planter as plasma fire chewed up the marble floor. "We can't fight through a battalion," Vexa hissed. She pulled a jammer from her belt, but her hands were shaking. Noah looked across the lobby. Parked near the freight elevator was a mobile command van, a sleek, armored vehicle emblazoned with the Helix Double Helix logo. Cables ran from the van into the building's data ports. "That van," Noah said, pointing. "That is the local control node. They are coordinating the security from there." "So?" Vexa asked. "So," Noah said, gripping his wrench. "I have a family discount." He didn't wait for permission. Noah bolted from cover, sprinting through the hail of gunfire. He slid across the polished floor, dodging a stun baton swing from a guard, and slammed into the side of the van. He didn't try to hack the door. He smashed the driver's side window with the wrench and hauled himself inside. The interior was a bank of glowing screens. A technician in a Helix uniform spun around, reaching for a sidearm. Noah was faster. He drove his shoulder into the man's chest, knocking the wind out of him, and shoved him out the broken door. Noah turned to the console. His fingers flew across the keyboard. He didn't know the codes, but he knew the architecture. He had grown up watching his father work on systems just like this. "Override," Noah muttered. "Emergency protocol. Authorize." The screen flashed red. "Authorization required. Senior management only." Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out his datapad, the one linked to his personal medical files, the files that proved Helix owned him. He jammed the datapad into the interface port. The system paused. It read the genetic marker embedded in his file. It read the name attached to the project. "Identity confirmed. Cade lineage. Welcome." The screens turned green. The security grid in the lobby flickered and died. The automated turrets powering up near the elevators spun down. Noah stared at the screen. There, at the bottom of the emergency response protocol, the order to liquidate all residents of the building to clear the way for the relay was a digital signature, authorized by Arthur Cade, project lead. Noah felt a coldness settle in his chest that had nothing to do with the storm outside. It wasn't just a job for his father. It wasn't just corporate loyalty. It was a transaction. His father had signed the death warrant for thousands of people, including his own son, to secure a promotion and a seat at the table of the New World Order. Noah looked at his hands, the hands that had glowed in the vault, the hands that Helix had modified to be useful keys for alien locks. He could feel the rage, hot and blinding. But beneath the rage, there was something harder, something like steel. "Noah!" Lyra's voice crackled over his comms. "The grid is down! We are moving to the elevator." Noah looked at the signature one last time. Then he typed a command into the console. He locked the elevators, granting access only to his biometric signature. "I am coming," Noah said. He jumped out of the van. He wasn't the maintenance man anymore. He wasn't the victim of a science experiment. "If they rewrote me to open doors," Noah whispered to the chaos around him, "then I will open the one that ends them." The roof was a hurricane of light and noise. Rain lashed down in sheets, illuminated by the strobe light flashes of the malfunctioning worm gate above. The relay, the massive ring of metal they had tried to reach earlier, was now spinning so fast it was a blur, whining like a jet engine screaming before takeoff. Standing between them and the relay was the coup leader, High Counselor Vikor. He was not wearing robes. He was wearing combat armor, flanked by his elite guard. "You are persistent," Vikor shouted, his voice amplified by the storm. "But you are obsolete. The gate is opening. The fleet will arrive, and order will be restored." Lyra stepped forward. She didn't have a weapon in her hand. She walked with her head high, the wind whipping her stained robes around her like a battle flag. "Order based on lies is just a cage," Lyra said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the wind. "You are not bringing a fleet. You are bringing a gravity collapse." "Sacrifices are necessary," Vikor sneered. "You were always weak. Lyra, you and your reformists, you think peace is achieved by talking, by compromising with these savages." He gestured to the city below. "Peace is enforced," Vikor declared. "Peace is strength." Lyra stopped 10 feet from him. The rain ran down her face, washing away the dirt, leaving her pale and sharp and terrifyingly calm. "You are wrong," Lyra said. "Peace isn't weakness, it is restraint." She moved. It wasn't a diplomatic gesture. Lyra dropped into a combat stance and unleashed a kinetic pulse from her palms, not a weapon, but the raw, focused energy of her own biofield. It hit Vikor's guard line like a freight train, knocking 3 armored soldiers off their feet. "Vexa, the relay!" Lyra shouted. "I am on it!" Vexa screamed. Vexa didn't run. She danced. She activated her wrist projector, and 2 blades of hard light materialized in her hands, humming with orange energy. She spun through the rain, hacking into the coup soldiers. She was a blur of motion, laughing, a manic, desperate sound that bordered on hysteria. A soldier swung a rifle butt at her head. Vexa ducked, slashing the weapon in half with her light blade, then kicked the soldier into a ventilation unit. "Come on!" Vexa yelled, spinning to deflect a plasma bolt. "Is that all you have? I have fixed toasters that put up a better fight." She took a hit to the shoulder, a glancing blow from a stun baton that made her stumble. But she laughed through the pain, using the momentum to swing her other blade into a control panel. Sparks showered over her. Noah ran for the center of the relay. The magnetic field was intense. He could feel it pulling the iron in his blood. "Noah!" Lyra shouted. "The resonance!" Vikor had recovered. He leveled a heavy energy cannon at Noah. "Die, human!" Vikor roared. Lyra intercepted. She didn't fire back. She threw herself in front of Noah, raising a hard light shield just as the cannon fired. The impact skidded her backward, her boots carving grooves into the wet concrete. The shield shattered. "Go!" Lyra yelled at Noah, collapsing to one knee. Noah reached the central console of the relay. It was locked, glowing with angry red glyphs. He slammed his hand onto the interface. His hand glowed. The white light of his altered genetics flared, fighting the red light of the machine. Access denied, the machine buzzed. Harmonic dissonance detected. It needs both, Vexa yelled, limping toward them. It needs the human key and the alien signature. Lyra scrambled up. She rushed to the console, slamming her hand down next to Noah's. Link with me, Lyra commanded. Noah grabbed her hand. The effect was instantaneous. The white light of his touch merged with the blue bioluminescence of her veins. The console turned a blinding, brilliant gold. Harmonic established. The machine intoned. Stabilization sequence ready. Insert core. Vexa, Noah shouted. Vexa threw the stolen stabilizer shard. It spun through the rain, glowing hot. Noah caught it with his free hand. He jammed it into the slot in the center of the console. The relay screamed. The spinning ring slowed, grinding against the magnetic brakes. The worm gate above them shuddered, the violet void flickering. It is overloading, Vexa yelled, reading her wrist computer. The energy is backing up. The circuit is not grounded. If we let go, it explodes. The console began to vibrate violently. Arcs of lightning jumped from the machine, striking the wet roof. Lyra looked at the readout. She saw the energy spike. She looked at Noah. It needs a ground, Lyra whispered, a biological ground, to absorb the excess charge. She looked at him with a heartbreaking clarity. Noah, she said softly. Let go. What? Noah shouted over the noise. I can take the burn, Lyra said. My physiology can handle the surge for a few seconds, long enough to close the gate, but you have to let go, or it will kill you. No, Noah yelled. We do this together. You have a life to live, Lyra said, tears mixing with the rain. Live truer, Noah. She tried to shove him away. She tried to break the contact, to take the lethal current into her own body. Don't you dare, Noah screamed, fighting to hold on. Suddenly, a third hand clamped down over theirs. It was Vexa. Her hand was covered in grease and blood, her fingernails painted a chipped black. She gripped them both with a strength that belied her injuries. No, Vexa said. Her voice was shaking for the first time since Noah had met her. We do not do that. We do not save the world by losing the people we love. Vexa, it will kill us all, Lyra cried. No, Vexa said, her eyes fierce. Triangulate. We split the load. 3 points make a stable plane. You taught me that. Lyra, basic geometry. Vexa looked at Noah. Trust me. Noah looked at Lyra. Trust her. Lyra sobbed, a single broken sound, and nodded. Connect, Vexa ordered. They moved together. It wasn't a tactical formation. It was a desperate embrace. Noah stood in the middle. Lyra pressed her forehead against his right temple. Vexa pressed hers against his left. Their hands were locked on the console, a tangle of fingers, human and alien, mechanic and diplomat and engineer. Now, Noah yelled. The surge hit them. It wasn't pain. It was too absolute for pain. It was a white-hot river of energy that poured through them. It was the sound of the universe tearing, and the sound of it being stitched back together. But they held. Noah felt Lyra's discipline, her cool, calm ocean of control anchoring him. He felt Vexa's chaotic fire, her stubborn, jagged will refusing to break. And he poured his own strength into the mix, the stubborn human refusal to be erased. The energy didn't burn them. It cycled through them. It found a rhythm, a heartbeat, breath shared, hands locked, a chosen closeness that became a power greater than the machine. Broadcast! Vexa screamed into the void. Now! Through the connection, Vexa pushed the data packet she had prepared, the stitched fake confession source files. The coordinated comms between the Human Liberty Bloc and the coup, the contractor signatures, including Arthur Cade's, the entire roster of the Black Spiral faction. The signal shot up through the relay, amplified by their resonance, and exploded outward. It didn't just go to the city, it went to the orbital satellites, it went to the news feeds, it went to the personal device of every soldier, every citizen, and every diplomat on the planet. On the streets below, the fighting stopped. Soldiers looked at their tactical displays. The evidence was unspammable. It was raw, verified, and damning. On the roof, Vicor's guards lowered their weapons. They looked at their leader, then at the holographic proof floating in their visors. "It is over," Lyra whispered, her voice amplified by the machine. The worm gate above began to collapse. The violet void folded inward, imploding like a flower closing at night. The roar of the wind died down. Vicor stood alone on the wet concrete. He looked at the sky, watching his power vanish. "No," he snarled. "If I cannot rule it, I will break it." He lunged for a manual override lever on the base of the relay, a failed deadly switch designed to destabilize the core and detonate the spire. "He is going for the breaker," Noah yelled. Vexa didn't hesitate. She broke the circle. "Vexa, no!" Lyra screamed. Vexa launched herself at the machine. She didn't try to hack it. She didn't try to fight Vicor. She threw her body into the spinning gears of the manual override mechanism. She jammed her hard light blade into the gears and slammed her shoulder against the lever, snapping it off. The machine shrieked. The recoil was massive. Vexa was thrown backward like a rag doll. She flew 10 feet through the air and hit the concrete with a sickening thud. She rolled once and lay still. The relay groaned, sparked, and died. The lights went out. The worm gate vanished completely, leaving only the dark, rainy sky of Earth. Silence fell over the roof. "Vexa!" Noah and Lyra scrambled over the wet ground. They reached her at the same time. Vexa was lying on her back, staring up at the rain. Her coveralls were shredded. Her chest was rising and falling in shallow, hitching gasps. Vexa coughed, blue blood bubbling at the corner of her mouth. "Did I fix it?" "You fixed it," Noah choked out, grabbing her hand. "You fixed everything." Lyra was scanning Vexa's body with her hands, frantic. "Internal trauma, but her core rhythm is stable. She is alive. Vexa, you idiot. You brilliant, reckless idiot." Vexa managed a weak, lopsided grin. "Team. Roles. I am the hero. You two are the sidekicks." Her eyes rolled back, and she went limp. "Medics!" Lyra screamed, her voice cracking with a terrifying authority. "Get medics up here now!" The coup soldiers, now realizing the war was over, rushed forward to help. Not to arrest them, to save the one who saved the city. The aftermath was a blur of tribunals, flashing cameras, and hospital waiting rooms. The evidence was undeniable. The Human Liberty Bloc collapsed overnight. High Counselor Vicor was detained by his own guard and handed over to coalition authorities. The emergency tribunals were formed within 24 hours to process the sheer volume of corruption exposed by the broadcast. Noah didn't watch most of it. He spent 3 days sitting in a plastic chair in the critical care ward of the Embassy Medical Center. On the 4th day, Lyra came out of the room. She looked tired. She wasn't wearing robes. She was wearing simple civilian clothes, a sweater and trousers that looked suspiciously like they came from a human thrift store. "She is awake," Lyra said. "She is asking for nutrient gel. The doctors are confused." Noah let out a breath he felt like he had been holding for a week. He stood up. "And you?" Noah asked. "I saw the news. The council offered you full immunity. They want you to be the face of the new treaty." Lyra shook her head. "They want a puppet. They want me to say that the system works, that this was just a few bad apples. But the system is what built the bomb. Noah. I told them no. No immunity? Noah asked. I chose truth, Lyra said. I will testify. I will serve my time if I have to, but I will not wear their robes again. Good, Noah said. He checked his link. I have one last thing to do. The tribunal feed goes live in 10 minutes. He walked to a private terminal in the waiting area. He logged in. The screen split. On one side was a panel of judges, human and alien. On the other side, sitting in a holding cell, was Arthur Cade. His father looked older, smaller. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit. When he saw Noah on the screen, his expression didn't change. It was the same cold, calculating look he had worn in the contractor van. Noah, Arthur said, you look tired. I am fine, Noah said, when you realize what you have done. Arthur said, you destroyed the company. You destroyed the family legacy. I gave you a purpose. Noah, I made you special. You made me a key, Noah said. You didn't make me special. You made me useful. There is a difference. I did it for order, Arthur said. Someone has to make the hard choices. You didn't make a choice, Noah said calmly. You made a deal, and it was a bad one. Noah reached for the disconnect button. Wait, Arthur said, a flicker of desperation finally showing. Noah, I am your father. You owe me. Noah looked at the man who had sold his son's childhood for a promotion. He felt nothing, no hate, no fear, just a quiet, absolute clarity. You don't get to own what you broke, Noah said. He cut the feed. 6 weeks later. The rain in New Seattle was still constant, but the air felt different, cleaner. The tension that had gripped the city for months had broken, replaced by a messy, chaotic, but genuine attempt at reconstruction. Noah walked down the hallway of the spire. The blast marks on the walls had been painted over. The elevator worked. He reached the door of apartment 42B. It was a new door, reinforced steel, but someone had stuck a relentless number of cheerful stickers on it. He keyed the code. The apartment was warm. It smelled of ozone, citrus, and pizza. Vexa was on the sofa. She was still moving stiffly, a heavy brace around her ribs, but she was surrounded by a cloud of holographic schematics. She was modifying a toaster again. Lyra was in the kitchen. She was chopping vegetables with a precision that was slightly terrifying. She looked up as Noah entered. Her eyes were bright, the segmented irises shifting to a warm, welcoming gold. You are late, Lyra said. The pizza is getting cold, and Vexa is threatening to upgrade the dishwasher. It needs a turbo mode, Vexa yelled from the couch. For extreme grease. Noah dropped his duffel bag, the same bag he had arrived with, but now it felt lighter. He looked at them. They weren't hiding anymore. They weren't a secret. They weren't tools in a cosmic game of chess, and they were a mess. They were loud. They were complicated. They were a family. Sorry, Noah said. Traffic was murder. Apparently, half the city is trying to get tickets to your lecture series. Lyra, it is not a lecture series, Lyra corrected, suppressing a smile. It is a seminar on interspecies conflict resolution through aggressive honesty. Sounds catchy, Noah said. He stood in the doorway, just looking at them. The mechanic who had almost died to save a machine, the diplomat who had learned to scream, and him, the maintenance man who had opened the door. Vexa looked up from her toaster. She saw the look on his face. She grinned, that sharp, shark-like grin that he had come to love. Lyra put down the knife. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms, but her posture was relaxed, open. Well, Vexa asked, are you going to stand there, or are you coming home? Noah smiled. It was a real smile, one that reached his eyes. So, Noah said, his voice thick with emotion. I rented a room, Vexa grinned wider. Lyra's eyes softened, glowing with that deep, violet light. You did, Lyra said softly. Best deal in the city, Vexa added. Noah stepped inside and let the door close behind him. The lock clicked shut, sealing out the rain, the politics, and the past. He didn't just rent a room. He found a life.